When's the last time you called the names on your prospect list, the names on your former customer list, your current customer list? Are you reaching out to the people who already know you, or are you spending all your time on new prospect development? Let's talk about lead generation. Let's talk about it with Victoria Wojnicz next on Purpose Under Pressure. Well, welcome back. My name is Brian, and this is Purpose Under Pressure. It's a podcast about developing sales and leadership success on purpose and under what is sometimes an unbelievable amount of pressure. You know how it is. And this show is brought to you by the professional sales and leadership training teams at Sandler by the Ruby Group. You'll find them in Akron and in Columbus, Ohio. They're in Jacksonville, Florida. They're in Capital Region, New York. They do their work on purpose. And they like to say that that's one of the reasons they're behind this program. You and your team are under pressure. We already said that. And there's no getting around the pressure. The pressure's always going to be there. It's how you stand up and how you get up and how you respond to that pressure that's going to separate you from others. Are you going to do things the right way, or are you going to take a shortcut? Are you going to kind of go this way when you should have gone that way, when you always promised that you'd go that way, right? That's purpose under pressure. It'll show you the right way. It's up to you to take it. And that's what they're all about at Sandler by the Ruby Group. I've seen them do it. If it's not right for everybody, they're not going to go there. If they haven't quite figured out what the main goal is, they're going to figure it out before they start. That's the kind of folks they are. And if you need that kind of in-depth strategy, understanding, development of your business plan, they're the guys to talk to, and the ladies to talk to, as you're going to see here in a second. I hope that you will connect with Sandler by the Ruby Group. You can find them online at therubygroup.sandler.com. The Ruby Group, coaching leaders to win when the stakes are high. So let's get cooking. You know, sales managers, owners, marketing directors, we're always asking for the next new thing, the new prospect, the make the cold call, knock on the next door, spend more money on marketing. We need new leads. New business is king. And yet your current customers are sitting around wondering, where you at? I mean, does that ring true for you? I know it's ring true for many jobs that I've had in the past in sales, where you bring someone in, you never see them again. And you lose people sometimes going out trying to find two more. And it doesn't always make sense. And I know it costs a lot less to keep a current customer than it does to make a new one. And so I want to talk about that just a little bit here on our show. I asked Victoria Wojnicz to join us today on Purpose Under Pressure. Victoria is the director of, let me get this right because it's such a cool title, the Director of Revenue Operations with Sandler by the Ruby Group. Honestly, is there something more important than revenue operations and to be the director of that? So we're going to talk a little bit about lead generation, smarter ways to go about that. Victoria, welcome to Purpose Under Pressure.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Tell me first, what is your role? What is the Director of Revenue Operations, and kind of why are you so good at it and excited to do it?
Yeah, so it's actually funny because I've had a relationship with the Ruby Group for over a decade now. I worked here about a decade ago. I left and I actually did some sales roles of my own, but I was also heavily involved, I guess you could say, in sales operations initiatives and our go-to-market strategy and utilizing our CRM. So I was heavily involved in that, and I was super interested and intrigued by that because though I was selling on a day-to-day basis, which I really enjoyed, I felt like I really enjoyed the sales operations side of it. And so what I'm doing, I'm not so much on the direct selling side anymore. I'm heavily involved with our sellers. I'm overseeing our CRM, improving it, making sure it's sustainable, efficient, and also, there's new AI things that come out, I
Mm-hmm.
think, every other day. So
Mm-hmm.
trying to, stay on top of those and how we can incorporate those into our organization. So I own that infrastructure. I also make sure it aligns with, Sam, their branding, making sure our vendor relationships were, utilizing those correctly and providing the sales team with the resources, helping them with their programs that they're selling, best way to sell it. I give them suggestions. I handle lead generation efforts. And then I work closely with pretty much everyone within our organization in some aspect just to make sure we're aligned and we're delivering what we promised and told them that we would do. And obviously, doing all that, it becomes a huge revenue generating task as a whole. So that's kind of a little bit about me and what I
And
do
I
on a day-to-day basis.
And I think that's key at Sandler by the Ruby Group because I know they're all about processes. And so you said a couple of things that I want to dive into specifically. You mentioned lead generations, that's part of
Mhm,
what you do, and you mentioned CRM. And I want to dive into those two things almost as a dual conversation.
mhm,
So let's talk about a little bit about what a CRM should be. And then I want to get into things that we can do to use it to generate real
mhm,
revenue and real opportunities.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It's about honing in on the quality of what's in your CRM. It's a huge database full of hundreds of thousands of pieces of information that are so easy to lose track of. You'll see a name and you'll never see it again.
Yeah.
So we're so heavily reliant on processes. There's certain things that we do with our current clients. We always, even though they're current clients, we always kind of have a next step of some sort. Obviously, it's part of account management. That's all stored in there. But what happens when a client goes away? Just because they go away now doesn't mean they're going to be forever gone. So
Yeah.
much changes. Think of your own organization. How much changes within a year? The personnel, the organization's growing. Doesn't mean you can't grow with it. So just because someone offboards or, goes away for a certain amount of time, I have kind of a general rule of thumb. Anytime someone falls off for a reason that I don't want to say is respectable, but they give us an honest reason. And typically we're like, you know what? We're so okay with that because we want to make sure we are aligned with what you're
Mhm.
doing. But I'll make sure that we have a next step to check in at some point, even just a business check in. And if it leads to nothing, then it leads to nothing.
They're always okay
So
with that. They'll never say, "No, don't
exactly.
ever call me again." That's never the situation. Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's just if you were able to pull a report of all the organization and or contacts in your database, that if there's a way for you to search last activity time, and let's say it was before 2024 or 2025, I'm not gonna lie, I did that earlier this year, and it was enlightening how many accounts and how many contacts in our system haven't been touched in over 2 years. It just fascinates me.
2 years, so they're in your system, you've talked to them
Mhm,
before, you haven't talked to them in 2 years, and in the meantime, you're scanning AI and looking for lists
yep,
and buying lists and
mhm,
and and calling strangers trying to figure the next
yes,
step out. What a missed opportunity.
exactly, and there's a few other general practices that kind of align with what I was saying right there is always revisit, those I call them recapture. Our ultimate goal is to recapture their business.
Mhm.
If, we had that relationship, it fell off for whatever reason. But then another step, and the big step that we were just talking about, I call it waking up your dormant CRM. How can we figure out how to utilize the information that we already have instead of, like you said, people are paying thousands, hundreds of thousands for new contacts. I don't even know if they're leads, they're just contacts, they're
They're
just
just names
contact
and phone
information,
numbers and
they're
email
just
addresses.
lists,
Yep,
you
yep.
know? So I'm big on segmenting and doing searchable, sortable fields at the contact level and at the organizational level. So wake up that dormant CRM. And again, see if there's a way, whether it's internally or with maybe your CRM partner, to say, hey, what's the best way to see what contacts we haven't reached out to in the last 3 years? So go into this cleanup with a strategy. Honestly, if that means deleting 3,000 organizations that you've never had any luck, if those are organizations that really don't fit your ideal client profile, why waste our time doing cleanup on organizations or contacts that don't even fit who we're trying to sell to? It's just a number at that point.
If I can make one call and make one sale, that is
Yep,
so much better than making 10 calls and making one sale. Right? So
exactly.
a CRM that is in tune with my right client, those who have an
Exactly.
opportunity to buy it that makes sense. I have maybe a small relationship, maybe I know a referral. Like
Yeah.
focus on those. And you're saying that they get ignored or buried. If you have 30,000 names,
Mhm.
how do you, I'll call the next 10 on my list and go home. there's no strategy there,
There's no
right? And so
strategy
you're saying
there.
clean up. As we wrap up, what's one thing a sales manager could do that might wake them up to say, oh, you know what, Victoria, she's making sense there. We're missing out on something. What's one red flag that maybe you could point to that says you really need to look into this if this is happening in your organization?
I would go individually to each of your salespeople on your team and say, tell me right now, who are you calling on? Who is our ideal client profile? If they can't tell you that,
Mm,
that's the first step,
okay.
because that doesn't even, what can you do without understanding that? I mean, there are organizations that could probably sell to anyone at any time, anywhere. Those are few and far in between. But
Yeah.
realistically, you need to hone in on making sure the sales team is understanding who they sh- who they should even be reaching out to. I think that's step one. One enlightening thing I could say right now, I did it with our team, and it was a mind-boggling moment. We did this, what we call, like, we went back on deals. When I say a deal, it's something that we've shown pricing to. We've gotten into those budget conversations, those pain conversations, done, the pain funnel. There was a clear need, but something happened, and that was a no for now. And we haven't touched base since. I ran that, and honestly, we are like, "Oh my god," you know? So that's super enlightening. And then, the amount of times, and there's a statistic around this, I don't know off the top of my head, but, some VP or chief revenue officers, presidents, CEOs, sometimes they come in for 3 years, they do all this change and growth, and then they're gone. So one thing that we've noticed, how quickly positions shift. So you might have called on the VP 3 years ago. That person's not even the VP anymore.
Mm,
So making sure your data and is up to date. Have a 200 target accounts. These accounts fit every bucket of what we want to work with. Let's do a little bit of research. Spend a little bit of time doing that research. And again, there's all these AI tools and platforms that help us do that, and make sure like the contact that we have is up to date. So those have been some enlightening things. But I think the biggest thing in step one is, if your sales team can't nail down who it is and what types of organizations or people that they should be talking to, I think that's a big step one.
I think it ties right into the title of the show. It's purpose under pressure. If
Mm-hmm.
you're reacting to the pressure, I need more leads, I need more leads, you'll pick up the phone
Mm-hmm.
book and start at A, right?
Yes.
And if
Yes.
you're doing things on purpose, you've got a strategy, you've got a list that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense to satisfy the strategy, and you're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off. You're focused, and I think that makes a ton of
Exactly.
sense. So if I'm a business owner, and I know the team at Sandler has told me many times, hey man, we're not just sales training. We help businesses get this stuff together. If there's a manager or a leader out there that's having trouble with their CRM or has heard what you've said and
Mhm.
said, I think that could use that kind of thing. Does Sandler help them do that? And if so, how would they reach out to you or to them or whatever to kind of talk about some of these strategies that you've talked about today?
Definitely a huge part of what we train on. We're not just teaching you topics and then go use those topics. We're going to look at your sales process. We're going to get aligned on your go to market strategy. We're going to get aligned on, a competitor analysis. We're also, if they come to us with a pain that says our CRM is awful, obviously we can say, okay, let's come up with a plan and help formulate a plan to make your
Mhm.
CRM more intentional. So if anyone would
That's a
like to
great
contact
idea.
me, it's Victoria.Wojnicz@Sandler.com.
Victoria Voynich, thank you so much for sharing this
Yeah.
information with us. It's something we don't, like I said, we don't talk about this kind of stuff so
Hmm.
often. We're so focused on what's next. And I'm
Yeah,
glad we got to
exactly.
spend the time on what we already have, this gold mine that lives within
Yeah.
our CRM. So Victoria Voynich,
Thank you
she's
so much.
Director of Revenue Operations at Sandler by the Ruby Group. Victoria, thank you so much for joining
Yep.
us on Purpose Under Pressure. I'm
Yep.
glad you're here.
Thank you.
Folks, thank you for being here. See, there's a wealth of information here. I know you didn't wake up this morning trying to figure out how to make your CRM better. You're probably getting ready to throw it in the garbage. No, make it better. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We do this every week. And if you like this show, please go ahead and subscribe. That way you won't miss another show. Tell a friend too, in case they need to get on purpose when they're under pressure. You'll find all past episodes of Purpose Under Pressure at brianmediastrategies.com/podcast and wherever you stream your favorite shows. It's brought to you by the Ruby Group, coaching leaders to win when the stakes are high. And until next time, no matter how high the pressure gets, just stay on purpose.